Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is sponsored by Bottles Beverage Superstore. With 2 South Carolina locations, in Columbia and in Mount Pleasant, just a bridge away from Charleston, this beverage superstore really does have some of the best selection in the state. Not only do they really support local products, but they also have interesting beer, wine, and spirits from all over the world. If someone is looking for something specific or something a little out of the ordinary, I'll send them to Bottles. Chances are they'll have it, but if they don't, the local experts at each Bottles location know their stuff, and they'll be able to suggest alternatives or help expand palates. In fact, I love having an excuse to visit because I always end up learning a little something new about the wide world of beverages. And if you visit, look for the Southern Fork recommended tag. That means the beverage has been discussed on this show, and you know I'd be sipping it with you if I could. For more information and to find directions to the bottles nearest you, visit shopbottles.com. Now, would you like a little cheese with that wine? When I decided to forgo studying for my doctorate, by no means did that suggest I was done learning. On the contrary, I wanted to learn through research and experience, and telling stories in the culinary world gives me that in spades. I love giving myself assignments, and lately one of them has been to learn more about cheese. Patty Floersheimer and Trudi Wagner of Goat Sheep Cow in Charleston, South Carolina, have been some of my best guides. And as we approach prime party season, I thought you might like to learn a little too. Their shops and restaurant are comforting, elegant, and a treasure trove to explore. And when it comes to cheese, they push my southern grocery store cheddar block boundaries in the kindest of ways. If you're looking for a little flirty frommage talk or some downright sexy Stilton, then listen on. Welcome to the Southern Fork, you two.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So that we can differentiate between your lilting voices, will you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Patty Floersheimer, one of the co-owners of Goat Sheep Cow.
And I am Trudi Wagner, the other co-owner of Goat Sheep Cow.
Okay. I have been a major fan of Goat Sheep Cow for years because you feed me cheese a lot. So I've gotten to know you from the Church Street location, both south of Broad, which is one of the only retail locations down in that area. It's a wonderful, big party platter ordering type location. Very small, but always packed with people anytime I walk by. And more recently, I felt very comfy and at home in your north location, which is right on Meeting Street, right down from Edmund's Oast, my friends at Edmund's Oast and Home Team Barbecue and Lewis Barbecue and all those folks. So you're just right around the corner from that. And so you've definitely expanded. So we're talking retail, cheese, and wine. And then we're also talking a restaurant space and then some catering things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number one, you're insane.
Yes. I was going to say, when you said restaurant, shoot us now.
Every person was like, why am I doing this?
Stupid idiot would open a restaurant.
Us too. Yeah. Stupid idiots.
So I want to go back to how you learned about cheese, because that's something that is intimidating for a lot of Americans, as much as learning about French wine varietals. Or how did you start that?
It's much less intimidating than wine. We're both born and raised in New Jersey.
Jersey girls.
And at one point we had a tiny little shop in Allenhurst, New Jersey, that was the precursor of the Goat Sheep Cow here. And
that was Goat Sheep Cow, real north.
That was not, it was not called Goat Sheep Cow, but
it was Yankee version.
It was the Yankee version. And we kind of learned it was, I have to do it to you, have to go there. It was with my ex-husband. And we became really good friends through this business. Trudy was a customer. And it was mostly wine, but we also retailed cheese as a kind of a side thing and learned it on a much smaller scale there. And then when we came down here, we fooled around for about a year and a half before we actually opened a business. But we were really truly gathering the information to determine how we were going to do this business. And we decided no one was doing cheese here. So instead of trying to sell retail wine, which was the main focus of that other shop, we brought in the much bigger cheese element. And basically, with the knowledge that we already had, we learned the rest on the job. And as we were opening, once you know how cheese is made and you have the basics, it's so much simpler than wine, where every time a wine rep comes in, there's a new varietal I've never heard of before.
Right.
If you think of cheese, it's goat, sheep, cow, and water buffalo. So
those are the milks. Sorry, we're gonna talk shorthand, but those are the different kind of milks used to create the cheeses.
Yes.
Okay.
And so in a way,
you didn't add water buffalo to the company name.
Well, we're going to add pork. We're going to add a little thing that says pork. It didn't trill off
the tongue quite as much.
No,
cow,
it just
sow.
Yeah, right. But anyway, like with the basics, it's not that. We didn't find it really that much of a challenge to learn the rest of the things.
I mean, you start with, this is a cheese I like, right? And then you go, okay, what is this cheese? What is the cheese made from? What is the milk made from?
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
And then from there, what's the next question you ask?
You mean as far as helping somebody pick out cheeses that they like?
Well, no, like learning. So I like this. That's how you learn wine. I like this. I like this about this cheese or wine. What is another?
It's really, I think, I will speak for myself. It's about tasting. Whether you're tasting wines or you're tasting cheeses, what tickles you, what really excites you when you taste something, and your taste and smell memory are two of the strongest things that you have. So you know exactly where you were when you had that meal that was drop dead, or that combination of food items, whether it's cheese and wine or whatever it may have been, but you know exactly where you were, what you had, if you're a food person, if you're driven in that direction. And so we encourage, it's very easy to talk about the things that light you up. And that's one of the things about how we approach our sales in the shop. It's sharing with people the things that we love. And we're not driven by sales quotas or buying this and getting that for free. It's really, we taste every cheese that comes in the shop, every wine that comes in the shop, and we have to love them. And we often use the term or we use the statement that says, this may not be this Chardonnay or this stinky cheese may not be something that I want every single day, but I would be proud to serve it at my dinner table.
I love that.
It's like sharing as opposed to selling. You
Love
just share
that.
the things you love.
So years ago, way back in the 90s, I actually was in grad school, and I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and didn't have a lot of knowledge of cheese beyond, Parmesan, cheddar, sharp cheddar, extra sharp cheddar, mozzarella.
That's a lot of Americans have grown up this way.
This is how, so I didn't have that. And I was in a Joyce and Beckett grad school literature class. And there was a story from Samuel Beckett, who was a very, profound and very hard to read Irish author. And he had a character who would eat gorgonzola on toast every day. And this was a very big element, and everything mattered in Beckett. So we had studied this for weeks. And I, as a food person, really gravitated to why this cheese illustrated some aspect of his personality, and I hadn't had it. So I went out to dinner with my ex-husband, if we're going to talk about ex-husband, and to Mama Ricotta's, which is still a wonderful Italian restaurant in Charlotte, and they had a salad with gorgonzola cheese, and I ordered it. And I was like, yes. And I took one bite, and I was like, I'm sorry, this is bad. I'm going to have to send this back. So I went from riding the merry-go-round to doing the crazy loop roller coaster. And I have never kind of quite gotten there. How do you push and share without kind of turning off customers? Because stinky cheese is stinky.
It's a lesson in psychology.
The way that I lead into helping a guest is to ask them, well, how many cheeses would you like to end up with? Let's start there. 2. Okay, something soft, perhaps hard. Yes, that sounds good. What's your flavor profile? Mild, medium, funky town. And if people say funky town, I do not take them to funky town right away. We go to...
Unless they're really wise guys and they deserve it.
Yes.
Me at dinner.
Yeah.
You have want that?
Yeah. Take the gauntlet there and go okay, here you go.
You go to medium funky town. Actually you go middle of the road. And then, because sometimes people will, if you take them this is my experience. If you take them to funky town right away, then they choke on the cheese. They put their arm on the counter. They bow their head. And they close their eyes and they say, thank you. And they turn around and they leave. And it freaks people out. So you have to gauge people, but you also have to take it easy on them. And in terms of flavor profiles, we taste a lot of cheese on a daily basis just to make sure that our product is where it's supposed to be at. And because artisanal cheese is such, it's not Wonder Bread. It's not going to taste the same every single time. So we need to know where the profile is today
and
next week.
Why doesn't it taste the same every time? Can you delve into that a little bit?
We kind of came up with a realization, and you hear the word terroir used mostly with regard to wine. It applies to the cheese world maybe even more. And maybe more directly, because everything that a cow eats, if you're talking about cow's milk cheeses, everything a cow eats,
goats, sheep,
and it's whether it's stressed or happy or what time of year it is, what they're eating, literally
variation.
what the milk, what the water is like in the area. All those things go into the quality of the cheese that comes out later. There is a term alpage, and alpage is cheese. In this case, it applies to the summer milks, and summer milks from cows that are just grazing in the alpine regions on wildflowers and herbs and things like that.
Fresh, lush grasses that make the milk really...
I just want you to just keep explaining cheese in your sexy voice there.
I know,
Trudy.
she's doing the breathy thing over
lush
here.
grasses.
Well, it translates, and it really does translate to sometimes floral, and there can almost be a citrus note to those alpine cheeses, and those are raw milk cheeses
But
too.
you can taste the herbs, and you can taste wildflowers and whatever it is they're grazing on, And if you think about it, you can actually taste those things.
Interesting.
And
yes.
it's really cool.
But
it really
so
is.
that's summer milk. So the cheeses that they make off the summer milk, in those particular cases, in Alpine cheeses, are very lush, and those cheeses are very prized. Now, they come down the mountain when it's cooler and in the wintertime, and they go into the barns. And they're fed, in some cases, silage and other fodder that supplements their diet, and so the milk will change again. So you'll see seasonal variations to cheese.
But also because they're artisanally made, it isn't like they're going through a factory process where a certain amount of everything is added to a product along a conveyor belt. It's human beings that are going to tweak it according to what the milk is like and what it's tasting like to them. And so every wheel in some cases is going to be a little bit different.
That's fascinating. I didn't really ever put those two together. So, I knew that about milk really bringing through flavor of grasses, but I didn't really think about it making it to the cheese. It's wonderful and fascinating. How long can we keep cheese? Because we're going to talk about why cheese is getting more expensive. And I really want to use all of it.
And you should never.
It's a common sense.
Well, and we try to educate people at the cheese counter a lot about this. When it comes to our inventory, soft cheeses are the ones that we keep our eyes on the most. They have a finite life. They have a water content that can be as much as 50%. So when soft cheeses go bad, they go over the hill and they're done. Whereas semi-softs, hards, blues have a much longer shelf life. And in those cases, if you develop a little bit of mold, you should scrape the mold off your cheese or ask your cheesemonger, how should I store my cheese? What should I do if I see a little bit of mold on my cheese? But soft cheeses, depending on where how they come to us in what state through the distribution line, if they're really young, we can get as many as 3, 4, or 5 weeks out of them. If they're really ripe, it can be several days. So it depends on, because we are not picking the lots that come from our distributors and importers. And that's one of the things when we do accept deliveries of those cheeses, that we are mindful of what state they are in, and we will send cheese back if it's not up to par, or it's short dated and maybe I only have 3, 4, 5 days to sell it. So those are important things for us. So soft cheeses have a finite life, weeks, essentially. Aged, like semi-softs and aged cheeses, those in some cases are aged 3, 4, 5, 6 months, years. In like Goudas and Parmesans, there are 2, 3, 4, 5. Aged cheddars can be, you see them as old as 10, 12.
Right.
And if you think about it,
to us. So could you imagine carrying a cheese in your fridge for 12 years? Not really, but the reality of
it doesn't last in my fridge that long.
Well, if you think about it, the reason that humans started to make cheese is to preserve milk.
I was going to mention that. Yes, of course.
So it really, it can last a pretty long time.
Now, I've read online and have experienced in person, there are those of us that eat the brie or the soft cheese rind, the like, what is that called? The bloomy rind. And then there are those of us that cut through the middle, and respective sides of that argument call the other ones monsters on Twitter, which I think is a little over the top for like what's going on. So like, how do you weigh in on that argument?
On rinds? You want to take that one? Or you want me to take
it? I eat everything except for wax.
And wax is red.
And so it can be black and can be different colors.
Okay, but if it feels like wax in your mouth,
then you don't really want to eat it.
Unless you're a goat.
Even the natural rinds on some things like Parmesan. Like Parmesan is not dipped in wax, even though it kind of feels leathery, waxy on the outside.
And it's printed with letters on the outside and words.
That have been burned in.
It would be really hard to chew. But it is technically, it's edible.
Natural rind.
Because it's a natural.
So when it comes to rinds, soft cheeses are definitely part of the experience. You should enjoy them.
Yeah. The monsters are the ones that are not eating the rind.
Yes. And soft cheeses. And then
tweetable moment, as Oprah would say.
Even washed rind cheeses, those are edible rinds and eat them if you enjoy them, don't if you don't. And, and everyone falls in a different camp. Patty's a fan of those rinds, and they'll throw texture and sometimes bitterness to your experience. I'm not a fan of rinds when it comes to those washed rinds. I mean, I eat the rinds on soft cheeses for sure.
You should always try it. And if you don't like it.
And I've had Sweetgrass Dairy on the show before, and they do a beer washed with a brewery that they have in partnership, and it's really
we love
delicious.
Jessica and Jeremy.
Yes,
they're adorable.
Jessica was wonderful to have on the show.
She's awesome.
Okay, so eat the rind unless it's wax
or
try
plastic.
it.
And then if you don't like
plastic.
it, then don't eat it next time around. But we always tell people at least try it.
But you can also save the rinds and for pieces
Parmesan.
and parts.
Especially parm. Yeah.
And you can make soup with them too. Yeah. So that's another show for another day. I'm getting kind of hungry. That smoothie is, not doing it right now. When we're building a cheese board, we're going into the holiday season where a lot of people decide this is cheese board season. We're trotting you out to talk cheeses because we're going into prime cheese time.
That's right.
How do we balance that? There are a lot of people that have already written about this, but just give us heads up. If we're not going to have you, if we're going to try to build something from our fridge, what do we do?
Totally. You want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got this one.
All right. Get it.
Our name, Go Cheap Cow. The best way to get a variety on your plate is to try to cover those three animals unless there's an allergy or whatever.
So milk variety.
So you go for the milk varieties if you want to get so Go Cheap Cow. And if you want to throw in a fourth, I always say either buffalo or blue or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then while you're mixing up the animals, you mix up the texture of the cheese. So if you chose a soft cow, then you might want a hard sheep and a semi-soft goat. Mm-hmm. But if you work with that mix, you will have a really interesting cheese plate that kind of covers all the categories.
And that's easy. We can remember that. And then all that other stuff that's pretty and adds to it, the Marcona almonds, the prosciutto.
And it brings color in and texture.
And flavors and pairings. Mm-hmm. But, you can also just put a dollop of jam on there. And
sometimes a one cheese plate will get you there. If the cheese is spectacular enough, like we're coming into Rush Creek Reserve season. Do you know about
I don't know about Rush Creek Reserve.
It is a cheese made by a gentleman named Andy Hatch. What's his company? Uplands Cheese. I just went blank. And the cheese is a copy, which nothing negative about that, of a famous cheese in Europe called Vacherin Mont d'Or, which is made with those winter milks, when the cows are down in the barns and they're fed different, not the fresh outdoor foods. The milk is a thicker milk that lends itself better to this softer cheese that's usually under 60 days, just about 60
usually
days.
Raw, yes.
And raw milk, if they're optimum, it's raw milk, and they are like pudding inside the cheese. They're wrapped in a spruce band. They're about the size of a giant hamburger.
Santa Claus, are you listening? What I need in my stocking?
It is the most sensational.
It's very sexy.
People are froth at the mouth for it. It is
just,
so good.
people are all over the edge about burrata, but this sounds like the next level.
This is really sexy cheese.
Winter sexy cheese.
Yeah, really, really
and
sexy
cheese. There's a very
cheese.
limited supply and production that happens. And I think we start begging Andy somewhere around August 1st.
Yep.
How much more we can get every year.
We go through, I think it's, what did we say? 70 cases.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to come in for, and when do you start carrying this
first
cheese?
ones should be first week in November. I think the first shipment is like November 6th or something like that. And it's really
and then the last
extraordinary.
shipment comes like just before Christmas, and that's it. When supplies are done, supplies are done. So,
all right. What's the name of the cheese again?
Rush Creek Reserve.
Oh my. Okay.
It's extraordinary.
Now that is a domestic cheese, correct?
Yes.
But a lot of your business, a lot of your wine, and a lot of your cheese comes from the EU, the European Union.
It's kind of our specialty. Yeah.
Right. And there is something that is taking effect right now if something does not change on October 18th. That is increased tariffs that seem to be apparently are in response to Airbus, but for some reason it's really going to affect what's on my plate and in my glass. So this is a tariff that really is going to increase prices, almost double prices, correct?
We were fearful of 100% tariffs. What's come through in the decision from the World Trade Organization for our specialty food category is mostly 25%, which is thankfully not 100%, but still is going to be a big problem for a lot of small guys like us.
And the small producers on the other side,
exactly.
Right?
Yep. But margins are tight enough that I don't know what the market can bear.
Well, I mean, specialty cheese, specialty food is pricey enough already. How much further can we go before it impacts sales?
Mm-hmm.
So, we sound calm, but we're not.
Not calm. And this also is affecting a lot of small French producer wines. It's not going to affect sparkling.
It's not just French, incidentally.
Oh, that's true. Right.
So
right.
It's all over.
There's a list that is all over the board. But
I think it's everyone in the EU.
And most importantly for us, the things that are impactful for us, the tariffs will impact Italian cheeses, but not French cheeses. Tariffs will hit Italian or French wines, but not Italian wines. So they've kind of flip-flopped. Those are the big things. But then there'll be cheeses, all Swiss cheeses, all British Isle cheeses.
Even Danish, even
And that affects the Kerrygold butter that we love as well.
Olive oil will be impacted. I think olives as well. Lots of pork-based products, so charcuterie from Europe as well. So everything will start.
I want to say it's even nuts and things like that.
Yeah, the list is pretty comprehensive. I have a printout that's 8 pages long. And then, it's 25% for the specialty food group. And in that in like the list of things, it's 10% on the airline parts, on the aircraft parts, which is what this tariff is, that's the real kicker, is that this tariff is based on an argument between Airbus and Boeing through the World Trade Organization. And they're penalizing the specialty food business as part of this. So it has nothing to do with the specialty food business, but we're in the line of fire on this. And the other thing is that because the WTO authorized a $7.5 billion tariff, it doesn't mean that it can be enforced. Mm-hmm. The current regime can say, no, we're not going to enforce it. By the same token, in this kind of silly escalating war of tit for tat, the World Trade Organization in 2020 will consider granting the EU a tariff against the U.S. based on subsidies to Boeing. So they could have their own tariffs against us.
So why not just call the whole thing off?
Right. You say tomato, I say.
Yeah. And leave
all
us
I could think of was when you said WTO was WTF.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with a tariff, there are a couple things. So the tariff sounds like it's punishing that side, the people that are producing it, so that they can't bring it in. But how does that affect your bottom line?
So the importer, as far as I know, the importers will pay the tariff. And then what they'll do is they'll just pass that on to the distributors, which will pass it on to us. And then we'll be anywhere along the line, really everyone either
getting
passes
passed
it
along.
on, or, for little guys, we can't absorb that. For the big guys, they might be able to absorb those tariffs to keep their prices in line. But we've already heard from a lot of our importers and a lot of our distributors that those tariff prices will be passed on. There's no one's sitting back and saying, I can take this. No little guy, no big guy. So for us, it will be about kind of picking and choosing which cheeses. You'll see more French probably than Italian cheeses, which is a bummer because Italian cheeses are my favorite.
French cheeses are mine, so it's okay.
So then people will ask this question, so I must ask this. We need to really promote our American cheeses. So aren't there substitutes for all of these cheeses that in the U.S.?
You can substitute these cheeses, but really, you're not. There's no American-made Parmesan that can substitute for Parmigiano Reggiano. I think I recently read a description of it. One of our companies that we work with described the American version of Parmesan as a Kia compared to a Ferrari, and that's quite true. You just cannot. And
I have a Kia, so I can really attest to the difference.
When you make things,
sorry, I just pooped in your car.
When you make
she's
things,
a 2005. It's okay.
Do you have a pet name for her?
Her name is Kia.
That's cute. When you make things as well as Jessica Little at Sweetgrass Dairy, then it stands on our shelves alongside the European cheeses. But there are a lot of American-made cheeses that are just not there yet.
They're not up to par.
And we can't put, as much as we want to support them so that they can get better, we don't want to support mediocrity, and you can't sell something that's alongside something that's better and oftentimes less expensive. So a lot of times the European version it'll be a lesser price than something that the Americans are trying to emulate.
Half the price, double the quality.
So we can't do that as much as we want to support them. We can't yet. But for some versions.
I think that American producers realize this too, that unless you're a specialty shop that completely focuses on American cheeses, you're going to eliminate a lot of, like if the cheese shops disappear, that means we're not selling American cheeses either. So if you put us out by virtue of tariffs on European goods, we're not selling American products either. So the Americans know just as well that they need to be represented in the cases alongside their European counterparts. That's just the bottom line. American cheeses are great, and we have great relationships with some of our favorite people.
Yep, we talked about 2 already.
But that's not
quality and flavor come first.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we're going to still be eating cheese here at the Southern Fork. So I'm coming for that thing that's wrapped in spruce for sure.
It's amazing.
So you can pair wine with it for me too.
We have this recipe for it. In Europe, they will actually heat the cheese and kind of use it as a meal, just with a baguette, glass of wine. But we have this recipe that had been passed down to us, and it involves lardons and champagne and garlic slivers and cooking it into that cheese.
The smoothie is completely non-existent now.
It's not.
So I'm going to ask a few questions that I ask of all the guests. Whoever would like to take the first one. What makes you hungry?
Good smells. I think more than anything else, I'll walk in sometimes and chef is cooking. Onions and garlic, and smelling that is like
the aromatics.
Yep.
What is one aspect of your job, Trudi, that really fits like a great puzzle piece with an aspect of your personality?
God, she'd have a field day with this question, answering it for me. I handle a lot of the detail stuff, ordering, inventory.
She's a picky kraut.
And I am fussy, and I am detail oriented, and I am bossy and in control. I need to control things. So that fits my role. I owned right up to that, Patty. I didn't shy away from that.
She's a good girl.
I stepped right in front of the train. I know that she would have said that about me.
It's okay. You've already popped up on the other side after the caboose. So, third, what keeps you up at night? I bet we just answer that question right now.
Partly, yeah. Money or lack thereof.
Food business is difficult. Margins are tight, and we're facing a labor crisis right now.
Yeah, huge.
That's very, very challenging. It puts us on the workforce. There's not a day that we're sitting in our office doing the things that owners or managers do. We are actually out on the floor every day, most days. And that's challenging because people will say, well, I sent you an email. I'm like, well, listen, I'm running around in the restaurant cutting cheese. busing tables, etc. So that labor force and tariff stress, certainly. Mm-hmm. All of those things are impactful.
Sometimes your cat keeps you awake.
Yes. He needs to sleep on top of me.
What is his name?
Mr. Gray.
Mr. Gray. And finally, you're going into the busy season. You're going to have a day where you just can't be bossy enough and you're going to snap. Somebody's going to make a face about the gorgonzola like me, and suddenly I'm going to have to visit you in jail. So I'm going to bring a picnic basket. And you don't know this about me, but I have the ability to time travel. I don't use it very often, just mainly for clothes shopping, as you can tell. And I also can conscript a chef to cook a meal for you, or a specific dish. I also can cook a little bit, and I can gather all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So what is going to be that last meal that I bring you in the picnic basket?
Patty, you want that one?
It'll have to have potatoes in it.
Okay, that's fine. But we really need to talk about what kind of potato. Do we want roasted, mashed potatoes, French fries?
Potatoes, bois, bois, bois. That's our, my son-in-law calls. Yeah, some kind of baked potato.
With cheese.
With cheese, of course. I think like dauphinois or one of those. Let's see, what else?
Foie gras. Come on, I got to give these answers to you.
I know. I do love my foie.
Stone crabs.
Yep. Yep. As long as I'm going to die, I might as well have my veins close up
Straight protein and carbs so far.
Straight protein and carbs. That's a fact. Some bread. I do love my bread.
Okay.
Butter. And lots of butter.
Oh. Okay. Butter. And then do we have a beverage with that?
Oh, it has to be wine.
Red, white, both, all three?
Sparkling, champagne. Yeah, I'm a French wine girl. There's where I'm going to get hit by the tariffs. Yeah,
not on bubbles.
Champagne, full out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to be hanging out in jail with Trudi and Patty, eating this last meal. But if people want to learn more about Goat Sheep Cow and Goat Sheep Cow North here in Charleston, South Carolina, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. I'm going to have links. I'm also going to have images of the faces behind the voices. Food business is a real business, and tariffs hit businesses. And this is hitting our plate now, starting in less than a month. So think about what's on your plate, because it matters, whether it's local, domestic, or imported. All of those things have a place on the plate. If you like what you hear, there are more than 155 episodes in the archives on whatever app you're listening to the show on. And you can dive in. There is a Sweetgrass Dairy where we talk all about cheese from Thomasville, Georgia. So you can check that out. And let me know what you think. Share something. And if you want to know where I'm going, what I'm doing, and more importantly, what kind of cheese I'm eating, follow me on Instagram. It's at Southern Fork. You're going to often see pictures from Goat Sheep Cow, especially as we're going into the fall. I'm going to need that French onion soup, ladies.
Oh, yes.
All right. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having us.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. I am sitting inside my walk-in closet again, just with a tiny mic, a really tiny but powerful Blue Yeti mic, to chat with you for just a minute today. And today I'm going to make a little plug for myself. I have been speaking more recently, both in front of groups and also to companies. And I've really, really enjoyed that. I've been speaking about how really food can be a community builder, both in the community of your company, but also in a larger scope. And then I also just do something fun. I've taught a little bit about cocktails, some cocktail hacks, and I have even invited a chef friend or two to cook a few bites. So if this is something that you or your company might be interested in, please reach out to me at stephanie@thesouthernfork.com. I've had so much fun getting to know people a little more one-on-one. It is really awesome. I'm not going to kid you. It's pretty awesome to sit here at the mic and just be able to say whatever I'd like, but it is even more fun to interact in person on occasion. So please reach out to me if this is something you or your team might like to explore. We can definitely craft something that is very specific to you, just as Patty and Trudi craft cheese boards. Yeah. I know that was a reach. Segue reach. But anyway, happy Friday, and until next time. You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?